Good morning everyone. The rotation in this video is inspired by recent tech on Astra and Yixuan interaction, cooked by Linnul, Kete, and Second Logic. I think it's really punk, and when I see it, I immediately think I gotta try it. In my opinion, Yixuan has a really wide selection of good things. For this video, we're gonna try her with Jufufu and Astra. But I want to point out that this is not necessarily mean it's her best team. I think Tal actually kinda a bit better than Astra here, at least they are not far from each other. This team is in a hypercarry scheme, all the things that Jufufu and Astra do is to amplify Yixuan damage. There's nuance on Yixuan in which she is a new Rapture agent that uses sheer force in her multiplayer, split skill between HP and attack, ignore enemy defense, have 2 ultimate, etc. But you probably already know about that. We will talk more about how we practically use her in the rotation breakdown. For now, let's talk about her friends first. Jufufu target, first and foremost, is to enable a forced stun window rotation. She has a really good stun capability to make this possible against Miasma Priest. Her main way of daze is by defensive assist, her aftershock, and her ultimate. We will see this more detailed later in the rotation breakdown. In addition to that, Fufu also has a pretty good supportive capability for Yixuan, which summed up by this icon. 50% crit damage plus damage bonus for chain attack and ultimate. This buff is refreshed every time Huwei burps popcorn on the enemy, when Fufu is off-field with 100% might. The buff is pretty much has a 100% uptime after the first 3 seconds of the fight. Not a lot of management needed on this buff. In addition to that, she also gives 30% crit damage from 4-piece king. This is all good and useful for Yixuan. She also gives 20% damage bonus from her signature if you have it, but I think there is a slim possibility we could still get a kill without it. I think I'll try it on a later video. But the most important kit of Jufufu is her giving decibel advantage to attack and Rapture agent, increasing max decibels to 4000 and giving 300 decibels refund after an ultimate. And Yixuan have 2 ultimates, so that's 600 decibel refund every rotation for Yixuan. You can see this visualized in run summary, where Jufufu not only get 4 stun window for Yixuan, but also enable her to do 5 ultimate. That's 1 more than the stun window count, really good. But as you see later in the rotation breakdown, I think there is a possibility we can make a 6 ultimate rotation. Now you might be thinking, how is Astra good with Yixuan? Even though she is an attack buffer, isn't Yixuan only convert 30% of her attack into her sheer force? That's true. Attack buff on Yixuan is less effective compared to direct sheer force. That's why I believe M6 spam for Yixuan is comparable to Astra buffs. But don't forget about all the other buffs that Astra gives. Another thing that Astra gives is rotational changes. Astra ultimate giving chain attack to Yixuan and Jufufu further complement Jufufu decibel advantage, as performing chain attack also gives a lot of decibels. So you might see now that there's a really good synergy going on between the 3 of them. As for their build, it's pretty straightforward. All of them has directives dedicated to them. There's no reason to deviate their build for this team. You should make sure Fufu and Astra meet their initial attack requirement, or at least close to it. And remember to never use pen ratio D5 on Yixuan. And let's quickly talk about Astra W engine option. Game Ball and Astra's own signature is the current best option to buff Yixuan, since Kaboom support effectiveness is not really good for Yixuan. And Fault buff uptime on Astra is also not good. Game Ball is really good if you don't have a lot of crit rate rolls on Yixuan. Let's lay out the fight plan before we break down the rotation. Our objective here is to get 4 stun window. To be able to get 4 stun window consistently, we need to get 2 stun before the priest goes into Miasma state. I'll call the first stun window the proper rotation and the rest of the fight the Rushdown Rotation. You'll see why later in the video. First, let's focus on the first stun window, the proper rotation. Our target time for the first stun window is at 220. This will be more easy if Miasma Priest is giving a lot of yellow blink for defense resist. You might sometimes find Miasma Priest only doing his sword charging move without giving any assist opportunity. For his strategy, there's nothing we can do other than reset until the RNG is good, but it's not that hard to happen, so don't worry about resetting too much. We also need a lot of defensive assist before the first stun, since we want all the agent ultimate ready for the first stun window. Without a lot of defensive assist, Astra ultimate might not be on time mid-stun rotation, which is important. While Miasma Priest changing her phase, we stack quick assist on Yixuan, then charge her Ball EX, to then parry Miasma Priest's launch attack with her Wing EX. So Yixuan has 2 kinds of EX that we use. The first EX, the Cloud Shaper, or I'll just call it Ball EX, performed by holding her basic, has relatively more damage multiplier, and slower at consuming adrenaline. While the second EX, the Wing EX, performed by tapping or holding her EX button, consume more adrenaline at a short amount of time and can be used to parry attack. Both have a situation where you want to use them. Ball EX is good generally for dealing damage. This is Yixuan's secondary damage source during stun after her ultimate, but Wing EX is especially better during outside of stun for parrying enemy attack, as it becomes more adrenaline efficient. My personal rule of thumb for her EX usage is pretty much that. Ball EX for whenever Yixuan has a safe idle time to deal damage, and Wing EX to parry any foreseeable incoming attack. That's why during the rotation, I will always left out at least 40 adrenaline for Yixuan, so I can always be ready whenever I can parry the enemy attack. And you definitely want to spend a lot of her adrenaline before the stun window. Her game plan is she wants to use up a lot of adrenaline, so her technique ultimate will be ready. That's when the bar below her picture is full. And if you feel like Yixuan already short of adrenaline in the middle of the rotation, you can basic attack, defensive assist to another agent, perfect dodge, triggering auric attribute anomaly, and performing ultimate with other agent. All of this generate adrenaline for Yixuan, so if the card is played correctly, you shouldn't feel like Yixuan lack adrenaline. Now back to the rotation. We got a good Miasma priest pattern here, where she keeps giving defensive assist opportunity. This is what we want. Sometimes the priest might even get impaired, increasing her stun multiplier to 130% for a bit. This might not always happen, but if it happens, you should always use this chance to deal damage. But hoping this to happen consistently is not practical. After some more defensive assists, Fufu and Yixuan ultimate is finally ready. There's no reason to keep playing with the priest stun. Fufu ultimate to enter the first stun window. The priest changing phase before the stun here is good, so the stage buff mechanic for the extra crit damage should be maxed now. Now you might be thinking that Fufu ultimate doesn't feel like it deals a lot of days. We still need 20 more days. Don't worry, see that Fufu might bar is full. As soon as she get out of field, Huwei will burps popcorns, which deals a lot more days. So you could say that Fufu Day's capability also really depends on her aftershock to happen. But now, the priest is about to get stunned. Before that happens, we have to make sure Yixuan technique is maxed out for the stun rotation. This is where her Wing EX is useful, as it uses a lot of adrenaline in a short amount of time. Using it to clutch in technique point is very useful. Now let's see the proper and tidy version of the stun rotation. We first start by using Yixuan Ball EX to max her technique point. When it is ready, release your basic button first, then use her technique ultimate. The EX Ball Explosion should trigger the chain attack, making us can go to Fufu chain attack while Yixuan is in mid of her ultimate animation. This is really good for Yixuan, saving a lot of stun time, since her ultimate animation is relatively long if we stay on her. Now the next combo, we are going to use the Astra ult tech with Yixuan. If you want to learn more about this tech, you should check out Linul video. First, cancel the chain on Fufu, quick assist to Yixuan. This is more smooth if Astra has a cord that can go to Yixuan immediately, but quick assist by Astra is not that bad either. Like the first part of the fight, Yixuan make another EX ball. In the middle of that, swap cancel to Astra ultimate, and immediately mash the swap button. So when the ball explosion trigger chain, we are in the middle of Yixuan chain, which means we can go back to Astra chain and back to the second chain with Yixuan. This is a really efficient stun time usage. After her double chain, the rest that Yixuan can do here is to use up her adrenaline for ball EX. Before the stun timer runs out, explode the ball by releasing the whole basic, then start another ball EX until her adrenaline runs out. After that, before we go to the next rotation, make Yixuan enter Auric Ray by holding dodge and pressing basic. This generates a lot of adrenaline for her, so her next rotation will have no adrenaline problem. Now before we go to the next part of the rotation breakdown, let's review the first stun window. You know, I think I haven't fully utilized this Astra Yixuan interaction. My idea on the rotation crafting at first was to make a 6 ultimate rotation with Yixuan. So during the Impair state on priest before the first stun, I wanna use Yixuan ultimate early here. Then, by doing double chain by Astra ultimate, I was hoping it would generate enough decibels for Yixuan to get her second ultimate inside the first stun. Theoretically, this will be a huge damage increase, but I can't really seem to get the decibels amount that I want. I only have one day on labbing this rotation, and I'm aiming to improve this rotation when Miasma Priest next show up again. Now let's get back on the rotation breakdown, the Rushdown Rotation. I call the rest of this part Rushdown because remember, the main advantage of Fufu is decibels advantage, which means using our ult ASAP is far better than holding it. This is to make sure we get an extra ultimate count. Starting at around 140, there's a chance that Priest will start to run away to start the Miasma phase. So now we have 20 seconds to stun her. How would we be able to do it without Fufu ultimate here? Well, you'll see, after the first stun, there's a high chance Priest will change phase into her dual sword form. You have to know that this is literally Priest giving us free decibels. You see that by getting all the defensive assists with Fufu and Yixuan, at the end, both of their ultimate is now ready. So you should always try to get them all. The days from all that defensive assist is also important to build up the second stun window. How I do it is, I just mash my swap button. I try to experiment at tapping rhythm for it, but I find a better success with just mashing button. And at the last 3 defensive assists, you should wait for the priest comes down before pressing basic for the follow-up. This will make the follow-up hits the priest, which would also help on building days and all that. To get the second stun then, we use Fufu ultimate, then we also use her EX here. Since her mic is not maxed out yet, I think this is fine. But if her mic is already maxed out, I would avoid using her EX because it could be wasteful. Now this part, it would probably be best to hold her ultimate for inside the stun. That is true, but this is the safest way to ensure we get the second stun window. Staggering the priest with Yixuan ultimate so she couldn't run away until she is stunned is the safest way to do it. Then we do the stun rotation, but without Astra ultimate in the middle. This is kind of another reason why we can't really do the proper stun rotation from the first stun for the rest of the fight. Because Astra is not included in the defense versus chain, her decibels really lags behind Yixuan and Jufufu. Even though the damage increase from her ultimate inside stun is amazing, without extra decibels from Astra M1, I think it's hard to do, or at least not practical to aim for that rotation every stun. Here, I was hoping by using Astra ultimate chain, Yixuan would generate enough decibel to still use her ultimate inside the second stun, but sadly no. If I can have a better rotation for decibels management, we could get the ultimate fit in this stun. So this part is also marked for improvement. Now even though the stun is already done and the priest entering Miasma state, we still better off use this Yixuan ultimate. Why? Because at the end of the Miasma state, we will get another defensive versus J, which will give us a lot more decibels. So holding the ultimate before will be not good for the rotation. And after the defensive assist, we try to stun the priest immediately by Fufu ultimate. Then also do a stun rotation similar to the second stun window. But now we fit in Yixuan ultimate inside the stun. Now the last part of the fight. If we are aiming for the 4th stun window, we need to do it before 0:15 to ensure we have time for the stun rotation. But after I review this last part of the recording, I think I'll also mark this part as another room for improvement. Here, I was too fixated on getting the 4th stun, but I didn't check the priest HP actually only has 3 bars left, and Astra ultimate is available here. So rather than waiting for defensive assist like in the run, I think it would have been better to use Astra ultimate here, chain to Yixuan, to Fufu ultimate and EX, then to Yixuan double ultimate. Even without getting the 4th stun window in this rotation, the raw damage should have been able to kill the priest, and saves about 10 seconds. And at this part, I literally just BMing. I could have just immediately used Yixuan's second ultimate to end the fight, and that's the breakdown. You know, overall, I'm actually left unsatisfied with this fight. Sure, we still get a kill, but leaving out the possibility of 6 Yixuan ultimate rotation is kinda make me disappointed. There's a lot of room for improvement. We could even get a kill with only 3 stun window and end the priest right after the Miasma state, I think. Well, I only have 1 day to lap this rotation, since I've only done building Fufu on Thursday and the A reset is on Friday. I'll definitely retry this fight next when priest back on the menu. So be sure to subscribe if you wanna see the perfected version of this rotation. I hope this video helps you and see you next time.